What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Back at you again with another Road Glide update. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started on today's install. We're going to be installing some progressive 412 shocks on the rear of my 2019 Road Glide. The reason why I went with the 412s is because it lowers the bike an inch. It goes down to 11.5 inches instead of the standard 12.5 inch shocks that come from the factory. Some of you guys might be wondering, why didn't you go with Legends or Öhlins for your performance bagger build? The reason being is right now I didn't want to spend $1,000 on a set of rear shocks for my bike. And on top of that, Legends are pretty readily available, but Öhlins are on back order and you can't get them for weeks. And I wanted to have these shocks on there for Daytona. So I went with a cheaper line, progressive suspension. They make great suspension. These shocks have been out for many years and I have heard nothing but great reviews on them. I know they don't do as much as the Öhlins or the Legends as far as adjustability, but they will lower the bike 1 inch for me, and being that I'm a shorter rider, I'm 5'7", I could definitely use that 1 inch lowering in the rear.
The next day.
Alright guys, so as you can see, I already have the shocks installed on the bike, and I apologize for not doing a more step-by-step install video on these shocks for you guys. Reason being is, once I got tearing it down, took the bags off, put it up on the jack, I just kind of went to town and put the shocks on because I wasn't sure if I was going to like the look anyway. I wasn't sure if it was going to sit the bike too low and give it a raked out look in the front. You know, I wanted the bike to still sit pretty level. I just would like it to be a little bit lower for me, being that I'm a shorter rider. So yeah, I didn't do a step-by-step install on these shocks, but I will go over a couple of the things that Progressive wants you to do when installing these shocks, and I'll also give you guys the correct size sockets for these bolts here, the 2 bolts that you have to remove and reuse to install the new shocks. Once I had the shocks on the bike, I went ahead and picked the camera up. I dropped it off the jack to where it was sitting level on the ground, and I measured the seat height from the ground to the seat with a level, showing you guys how tall the bike sat with the stock shocks. And I also did the same thing with a tape measure at the bottom of the fender to the ground when I had it sitting on the ground, stock versus with the new progressive shocks, so that it shows you guys that these shocks definitely are shorter, exactly 1 inch, just a little bit over 1 inch. And let me tell you, it really does help. When I sat on the bike, I feel more comfortable with my feet planted on the ground versus I was on like the ball of my feet before, and now I'm flat-footed. So they definitely helped out by lowering the bike a little bit, not too much to where it looks like it's all raked out in the front, and I hate that look. And I know that's definitely not the performance bagger look, but being that I'm a shorter rider, a 13.5 tall shock is just not going to cut it for me. I don't want to be uncomfortable on the bike. I want to be comfortable. So that's why I went ahead and went with these progressive gloss black 412 shocks. They are adjustable with a spanner wrench. We're on the lowest setting right now, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other adjustment settings that I can raise the shocks up a little bit. I am on the lowest setting right now. As you can see, it tucks that rear wheel under the fender real nicely. But I'm really impressed with how these turned out. I know these shocks have been out for a long time, but I went ahead and ordered them because they were cheap, and well, a lot cheaper than Öhlins or Legends suspension. And being that I just wanted to lower the bike a little bit for now, ride it in Daytona, see how I like it, and go from there. I might end up ordering some Legends in this size. That way it still lowers the bike, but I just didn't want to have to spend all that money right now and also wait for them. These were readily available and I could have them installed for Daytona. So that's the reason why I went with the progressive suspension, the 412 shocks on my 2019 Road Glide Special. So installing new shocks on your Road Glide is actually really simple, guys. You want to have a floor jack, and you want to jack the bike up off the ground where the wheels are off the ground, and then you want to have a car jack readily available to put underneath the rear tire just to set pressure on the rear tire so that when you undo your shock bolts, the swing arm doesn't fall all the way down to the ground. So being that these are already installed, I'm going to just tell you what you're going to need to disassemble your old shocks, which are right here, these old ugly shocks. And if you're wondering why they look different, it's because they are. I don't know why Harley from the factory puts these crappy shocks on these beautiful bikes. You know, $30,000 motorcycle comes with 2 different rear shocks. I just don't understand it. I don't understand the engineering behind it. I know all of the suspension companies like Öhlins, Legends, Progressive, they just don't understand why they would even do this and make the rider go spend a ton of money on suspension for the bike to handle and ride smooth. I just don't understand it. I never will. So like I mentioned, you're going to want to raise the bike up off the ground to where both wheels are off the ground. Use your floor jack underneath the rear wheel just for support. and you're going to take off these two bolts here. I suggest taking off the bottom bolt first, but you need a 3/4 inch socket, as well as the top is also a 3/4 inch socket. And then you basically take those two bolts out on each side, the shock comes off, and then in the Progressive kit, they offer a bunch of different bushings and stuff for different applications. They also, you can't see, but there's black bushings that go in the top and in the bottom of the shock. So you slide those bushings in, you use your existing washer on the inside, and then you use their supplied washer on the outside of the bolt for both the top and bottom, as you can see there, and then use your stock bolts to bolt the shock back onto the bike. Now, some of you might be asking, why did you run two spacers on each side? Well, here's why. Because you go over to the left side of the bike, and look how close this is. Look how close the clearance is. You can barely fit a piece of paper in between the top of the shock and the frame rail here. So what we did was we put a washer on each side to kind of bring the shock out just a little bit so that it clears the frame back here. And you also have to worry about the shock being too far out this way because your bags are going to be here and you don't want this rubbing on your bag. Now, this is a solid mount, and solid mount, obviously the shock moves, but this part doesn't. But you still want to have a little bit more clearance, so that's why we went ahead and shimmed the shock out just a little bit and made it even on both sides. This side didn't need it, there was plenty of clearance, but the left side definitely needed it. But we wanted to make sure that both shocks were even on both sides and had the same amount of spacing on both sides. So that's that. Super easy install. Anybody can do it. If you have a 3/4 inch socket for the top and bottom bolts, use your stock bolts, and make sure you put some Loctite on those bolts and drive them back in, torque them down, and you're ready to ride.
Like 27 7/8.
Yep, so that's the stock ride height on a 2019 Road Glide.
10 5/16. So I dropped it just over an inch.
Now this is after the Progressive 412 shocks are installed. We're looking at 9 1/4 inches from the ground to the fender tip, whereas before it's basically dropped it at 1 full inch. So here they are. Here's the Progressive shocks. They look really good on the bike. So once again, I apologize for not doing a more step-by-step install video on these Progressive 412 shocks. So what I'm going to do now is take the bike off the jack and sit on it and show you guys that I'm now flat-footed with the new Progressive 412 shocks. Alright guys, so as you can see, I'm flat-footed now, whereas before I was more like tippy-toed, and it definitely feels a lot better with these new Progressive 412 shocks on the bike. I can't wait to take this thing out on the road and make sure it rides smooth. I think the ride quality will be better. I think anything will be better than the stock shocks on these bikes. But yeah, that's basically it. You can see I'm now flat-footed, and I can't wait to take this thing out on the road. Alright guys, so that's going to complete today's video. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, make sure you smash that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate all your support on the channel. If you guys are going to be down at Daytona Bike Week this year, make sure you guys comment down below and follow me on Instagram at DoWork Motorsports. Message me, let's link up, let's do some riding. I'm going to be meeting a lot of different people from the YouTube community down there in Daytona, as well as some people I met on Instagram over the last year. Tons of performance bagger guys going down there. If you guys are into the performance bagger scene, you don't want to miss Daytona Bike Week 2021. It is going to be insane, guys. So if you guys are going to be down there, comment down below. Also, DM me on Instagram at DoWork Motorsports, all one word. I'll leave it up here on the screen. But like I said, it's late, it's cold, I'm tired, and I'm out of here. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next one. Peace!